Welcome to the SaaS Backwards Podcast, where we reverse engineer the success of fast-growing SaaS firms and explore strategies CMOs and CEOs are using to drive their businesses forward.
Welcome to SaaS Backwards, a podcast that helps SaaS CEOs and CMOs to accelerate growth and enhance profitability. Our guest today is Dmitri Lisitski, co-founder and CEO at Influ2, a person-based advertising platform that allows you to reach specific people within target accounts and see who interacts with your ads. Dmitri, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I'm really excited to record this episode. But before we dig in, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and something about Influ2?
Sure. Yeah, a little bit of the background. My previous business was a company called Global Logic, and it was a large IT services firm. And we built pretty large business. It was acquired by Hitachi 2 years ago for $9.6 billion. So a pretty huge scale IT services company. And then what kept me unsettled was the fact that B2B marketing was not super useful for success of this company. And I was thinking, what else could we do? And that's what led me to create Influ2. And the idea was like, hey, I really believe that marketing can help in enterprise sales. And that's basically what we do with Influ2. So we built an advertising platform that helps to target individual prospects and influence their decision to buy your products. And then we also try to track how much it helps you to drive additional revenue by doing this.
I see. So another subject matter expert kind of coming into building some software. You saw a business problem where you were before and wanted to find a good way to solve it. There's a co-founder with you. How did you come together and tell us a little bit about getting the business started in the first year or so?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but it's kind of funny story a little bit. So in fact, we started together with my co-founder, but we almost did not interact. And in fact, my wife and his wife knew each other quite well, but somehow we never connected. And then when I quit my previous job, I realized that I actually decided to retire because I thought about this problem, but I couldn't see a solution to this problem. And obviously, I had some retirement plans maybe for my previous company, so I did not probably need to work that much. And then I shared my frustration with a problem that I couldn't solve. And with him, we accidentally met, and he told me, "Hey, I have an idea how to solve that." And he had 7 ideas. He's really brilliant guy. And one of those ideas, I just picked the easiest solution to that problem. And in turn to be able to, we now call Influ2. And it took us 6 months to build the technology because the technology itself is pretty, it requires some additional effort. And we both have applied mathematics degree from the university where we started back in Kiev. And we basically use our knowledge of machine learning and mathematics to solve the problem that seems to be impossible to solve.
That's very cool. So it's the power of a social network in your actual real world life that got you to your co-founder.
Yep. Yeah. It's pretty accidental, I think, in some cases, but it worked for us.
That's okay. I mean, I think there's a lot of power in just finding someone to start a conversation with as a founder. You don't always know where these conversations are going to lead. So I think that's very cool. Why don't we dig in a bit on Influ2 right from the get-go here and how it's different from other ABM advertising platforms that our listeners are familiar with? Because I think there's some distinct differences here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in fact, before we founded Influ2, I visited Demand-Based Conference back in 2015. And I thought I really loved the idea of account-based marketing as a strategy. So I really and I still believe huge believer in this idea that the best way what marketing can do for salespeople is actually to go after the same account they're trying to chase and to influence their decision to build awareness and also to track intent. So definitely, I like the idea. What I didn't like is the fact that it seemed to be too imprecise and targeting an account of say 150,000 people, which is like companies like Microsoft of the scale. it's like putting a billboard in a small town, right? You have no idea actually who is seeing this billboard, right? So, and basically that was my biggest, disappointment. And the reason why we decided to build Influ2 is we try to solve that problem, of targeting decision makers, not someone in the account. Yeah, I think the biggest distinction of Influ2 from other ABM platforms is exactly this. We believe that people make decisions, not accounts, and you want to influence specific decision makers, and you should be aware of who you're influencing and how. And this is very important. So the differentiation is your ability to target individual buyers, individual buying groups, not just the full account or someone in that account.
Yeah, we're very much on the same page here with how we run demand gen programs. To the extent we can have a great start of a CRM with all the people important to a decision. This is an enterprise go to motion, right? Go to market.
Well, and by the way, I think this is the reason why demand gen, despite like some visionaries dismiss it, I think the reason why demand gen tactics work amazingly well in basically like even in the current environment and all the noise that's being created by AI platform stuff is exactly this. It's like when you build a meaningful connection with individuals using different channels, like using a good old demand gen program, it can be more efficient than running an ABM program that provides very shallow understanding about what is actually happening.
Yeah, totally agree. So this is individual to individual marketing, right? The trend I see kind of happening in marketing is sort of back to the future. We're looking back to 20 or 25 years ago to get inspiration for what we should be doing today. And I think account-based marketing, account-based everything, ABX, this is really going back to Peppers and Rogers, one-to-one marketing, one of the foundational books from, I think it's like 25 or 30 years ago. So I just think it's really very much bringing forward what I think is important in marketing today, especially again at the enterprise level, where ARRs are like 80,000, 100,000 or up. You need to influence people to make a decision. People buy from people. They want to be understood. And so I think this is very consistent with that. The other thing I think you mentioned, and I want to sort of highlight, is this idea of orchestration, right? You didn't use that word, but you're saying, hey, we want to go together, sales and marketing, against the same prospects. And we kind of look at two or three things, and maybe you can kind of jump in with me here. It's like this idea that either we have some first or second party intent data that tells us somebody's in market and we want to sell to them, or we have, let's say, 2,000 target accounts and we have good contact data for many or most or all of them, and they sort of get a cadence. Every month we're going after this body, this group of them, and so we're going to orchestrate against them. Or maybe we have some other signals that might give us another reason to pursue them. Is that what you're seeing also? Are your customers adopting that kind of mindset of sales and marketing orchestrating against that same group of people?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I totally agree with you that I think good orchestration is about providing meaningful intent insights to sales teams. And then like when you talk about orchestration, it's like most people think about, okay, how can marketing better work with sales? And then if you think about what sales need from marketing is in many cases just providing good insights in terms of, okay, what should I do? How can you, what is the best next strategy for me? And from that standpoint, I think leveraging different intent data sources is amazing. And actually, that's pretty much what we're trying to contribute with our platform, is because like people do not click on ads most of the time. So when they do click, that's an intent signal. And if you know who clicks on your ad, if you know the name of the person who did it, this is a very strong intent signal. Well, actually, we looked at our historical data and we see it across, like, I think currently like 60 customers. And it's like the chances that the person will respond to your sales call or sales outreach doubles if this person clicked on your ad yesterday. That's very consistent across very different verticals and different pieces of content. So it's pretty much what we're seeing across our customer base. So definitely, like, I don't know about other intent sources, but definitely intent provides a lot of value for salespeople, and that's what they're looking for when they think about orchestration of marketing and sales effort.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. A lot of platforms don't let us know who's seeing or clicking an ad. And if they click and don't convert, you might consider it a loss in marketing, right? We didn't get the form fill. We didn't get them to raise their hand. But in fact, they came and they visited and they did something, right? If we can get some insight into their on-site behavior, even if they don't fill out a form, that's pretty powerful. So I guess that's sort of a form of first-party intent at that point, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the whole mindset about lead forms, and I think it's kind of a marshmallow test applied to the world of marketing, because I think when in its infancy in digital marketing, I think it was pretty easy to generate leads, and it felt like that's all marketing needs to do. Okay, you run your advertising campaign, you get your lead forms filled, and hey, you have lots of hand raisers, you pass them to salespeople, and that's it, right? And frankly, I think especially when you think about enterprise sales motion, it really doesn't work this way anymore. Even if you have some lead form fills, it's just the start of the journey. And in many cases, salespeople call, and literally there's nothing to be filled out, right? So actually, there's like proactive sales outreach, and marketing still can be hugely helpful. So I think the marshmallow test here, and the reason I'm drawing this analogy is because you like just looking for a quick form fill is just the wrong way to think about it. You really put your buyer into a long-term journey, and especially when it comes to enterprise sales, even if you book a meeting, it still takes another 6 to 9 months to close the deal, right? And marketing can do a lot to help booking this first meeting. And it's not one touch, not one lead form. It can be multiple touches, and like in events, and you can do so much more to help salespeople book more meetings. And also throughout the sales journey, I think many marketers still think, okay, I'm not responsible for what happens after sell or MQL was created, which is completely wrong, because actually you can do so much more to help sales team to be successful throughout the full sales process, and actually meaningfully drive revenue even beyond MQLs, beyond sales. So I'm just thinking long term and looking for revenue rather than just short term MQL metrics. It really distinguishes good marketers these days.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much say now that the MQL it's either dead or dying.
Yeah,
it's certainly not a KPI that we try to optimize on anymore, and we don't suggest it to clients. We're really looking at that holistic view of go to market. There's a lot in what you said. I want to unpack a little bit of it. First of all, the idea that marketing and sales can be more closely aligned throughout the journey, from some initial engagement, as light as it is, through to sale and through to life of customer, right? That might be why in a lot of organizations now, marketing, sales, and customer success are all under the CRO. I'm seeing that a lot in the people I speak with and in our client base. I don't know if you have that as well.
Yeah, well, we don't in our organization, but we see a lot of our customers, they have this idea. I think it becomes super relevant as the company scales further. But yeah, I think when the company has this enterprise sales motion, ultimately CRO is responsible for revenue and including pipeline generation. And if marketing either report to them or closely operate with them, that they really can make huge difference by, again, like supporting the buyer's journey from like very cold relationship to throughout the full journey up until the deal is won, and actually beyond that. So definitely we've seen a lot of this happening.
So you probably have a lot of insight into what works on your platform. I'm assuming that there's some kind of way you can sort of see cross clients, what kinds of things are working, or they share with you what works and doesn't work. We're very focused in part of our practice on thought leadership for the enterprise. We believe the data from surveys like the LinkedIn Edelman thought leadership research they do every year, that thought leadership gives you greater access to the C-suite, higher contract values, that kind of thing. Are you seeing content being successfully used in generating new conversations for the enterprise motion? And what are you seeing happen with thought leadership content on your platform?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's kind of there are two angles here. One, thought leadership can be a very good starter for the conversation. And especially like if you think of kind of the whole idea of inbound marketing was about like, okay, don't sell to me, try to tell me something interesting. And I think it's still relevant in many cases. So I think it's a good starter, especially when you think of kind of longer term programs. But also many of our clients, like when they think about their first ad, and like we enable customers to choose what kind of ad you want to show at each stage of the buyer journey. Essentially, each individual buyer receive their personalized message based on where they are right now in their buying process. And obviously, there's no one fit all type of content. So even if you start with like very basic brands or value proposition, just to explain who you are and why you're bothering people, I think very quickly, like once the sales conversation starts, you really need to have the thought leadership piece just to support the fact, like to help to navigate throughout the sales process. So if it's not a conversation starter, definitely you need thought leadership pieces later in the sales process when you try to multi-thread your conversation to other buying group members, or just to convince to provide additional evidence of why this company matters, why their vision matters. So honestly, I can barely see or recall a customer who is not providing their thought leadership piece in some stage of their buyer journey. If not at the beginning, definitely somewhere in the middle. So yeah, definitely. I think it's otherwise the world would be very boring, because like otherwise we would just say, hey, we are just selling this kind of different products. And frankly speaking, that's not what you want to see in your social media feed, or like in Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, wherever you can receive ads. I think engaging people with interesting ideas is so much easier to get them hooked on your vision before you try to sell anything to them.
Yeah, we call that the buy my stuff ad. Right?
Yeah.
It gets pretty boring pretty quickly. The drive to the demo is a pretty weak call to action at this point. And can people do that kind of orchestration, that journey orchestration on Influ2, or do they need to manage that audience outside of Influ2?
No, they can. So essentially, the way we launched our new platform almost like 2 years ago, and the idea was like, you want to map your sales funnel and marketing funnel into one big journey where you can decide what stages your buyers are going through, and also what kind of content you want to show to them based on where they are, right? So essentially, we can say, okay, for cold prospects, I just want to build awareness, just let them know we exist. And then for those who are kind of interested already, engaged, and we know they're engaged, yes, we want to show some thought leadership piece to get them more interested and get them more engaged. And then when they book a sales meeting, probably we want to talk about our value. So basically, and then you map this journey inside the product, and then for each individual buyer, even in one buying group, it could be multiple situations. Like someone never have seen your ads because like they were like on vacation or busy, while some other people already interested, engaged, and kind of going through this discovery. So you can actually move with each buyer space and present the right piece of content to each individual based on where they are in the individual situation. So yeah, and it's done automatically. You just design the journey, and then everything else is done by the platforms.
So a very nuanced view of where the individual members of the buying group are.
Yeah. And then you actually can see what's going on. And actually, when salespeople receive a report from us, what they see is like, okay, what engaged this person? What was interesting for this individual? And they can continue sales conversation based on where they are in the buyer journey and what they engage them, right? What piece of content was interesting for this person? Because also it's kind of a very good insight in terms of like what matters for this individual, right? So I think one element of intent is like to understand who you want to talk to, right? But another piece is like, what do you want to talk about, right? And I think there's no universal answer to this question, and we can provide a very good clue. This guy was interested in this piece of thought leadership content, so maybe you can continue on that report that this person downloaded, or this article this person read, as a conversation starter, right?
I want to sort of go on a little bit of a tangent, but it's on everybody's mind about artificial intelligence, the ChatGPT generated content. Are you able to perceive any difference in terms of content consumption based on its quality? I mean, it may be hard for you guys to see the assets, but I'm just wondering, if in your conversations with clients or when they ask you to go through their own situations, are you seeing AI being important in the development of content, a hindrance to meaningful conversations? Where do you fall on that?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I think we should not forget we are also kind of natural LLM models in our brains, right? So I think, and what we are actually good at is to understand who we're talking to. So I think what we're seeing right now is like AI sales tools try to create much more noise, and people are very good in filtering this noise. So I think now the ability of marketers to create meaningful, insightful human content becomes even more important, right? So because like we are so good, like our prospects are so good in filtering all this noise that adding more noise does not help, right? So I think there could be some quick wins, like when you try to employ this broader outreach programs, but then it will flatten very quickly, right? So I think like it's kind of interesting because when AI becomes so popular, the need for genuine creativity, human creativity becomes even more important because that's the only way it can stand out from this noise. And again, like humans are very good in filtering this noise. And another aspect of this is like when you think about sales process, humans want to talk to humans, right? Ultimately, that's the reason why sales development works so well. Is just having the person behind this outreach is great, right? Or speaking about content again, you don't want to read generated content. You want to get some opinions of a specific person that is interesting for you, right? And you don't want to follow a bot with their ideas. At least like currently we're not seeing this happening. So from that standpoint, actually it makes like natural content, not AI created content, even more important.
Yeah, it's interesting. Back to the future again, right? Really good ideas expressed well in an authentic voice from an actual expert going to stand out in the crowd. And I think you're right. We all have pretty good crap detectors.
Yeah,
And we quickly stop reading things that kind of look like garbage.
exactly.
Definitely true. Does that also extend into ad creation? Or like, I have a thought that I want to share with you. Like, if I come up with really good messaging, right? I do the hard work of building a creative platform, creative brief. Can I use AI to create or optimize ads? Like, I have a messaging well, and then I let a machine come up with 40 versions of my headline and test them out. Is that a reasonable use for the technology if I've already got a big idea? Or should we, as humans, write our 8 or 10 versions of the ad and then see which ones do best?
Yeah, well, I think consumer brands have this luxury of being able to target millions of people and then see and then test thousands of ads at the same time. Even before AI, they did it. I think the challenge with enterprise sales or like overall B2B marketing is that you have very limited audience, and just to test anything, you need to have pretty big audience, right? So if you take 40,000 creatives multiplied by say 1,000 people that you want to see them, you will get 40 million, right? And definitely your market size is smaller in many cases. Like your ICP is much smaller. So I think that creates additional challenge overall for B2B is the idea that actually your markets are much smaller in terms of like head count, like number of people. And also sales cycle are much longer and you have so many touches. So the overall, like using statistical tools and AI and all kind of toolkit that is working very well in consumer world, it's very hard to employ here because you just don't have so much data and the intensity of what is happening is much higher.
I'm really glad we covered this ground here because I think you're absolutely right. If we have 2,000 companies we're trying to sell to or 3,000 companies, we might only have 10 times or 20 times that number of individuals ever to speak to with any voice, right? Just even an awareness ad. So I think it goes back again to really good customer insight, really solid creative teams coming up with campaigns that are likely to work based on their experience, not relying on a machine to cook it.
Yeah. Well, I think machine can still be helpful just developing content, like some pieces, like while you're thinking about it, or you can bounce your ideas or even generate some ideas from content. But the ultimate decision of what you think should work or not work. I mean, like in enterprise sales world and B2B marketing world, you just don't have so much data and audience to test all the ideas that can come to an AI mind.
Yeah. So once again, I think we're going back to this idea of humanization of sales and marketing, especially in the enterprise motion. While we need to use the technology in new ways to give us an advantage in our go-to-market, we also have to use the assets we have that are our people experts, whether they're subject matter experts, marketing experts, advertising experts, the people that can actually make a difference for you by making you stand out. I'm just sort of wondering, maybe as a last thing, attribution. I keep hearing attribution. My clients and prospects are all looking for it. And it seems the more enterprise the actual motion, the more complex the motion, the harder attribution is. And so I guess I'm wondering, how can we measure the impact of advertising on revenue? How can we communicate that to the CFO, right? Because so many marketing leaders, ultimately, they have a monthly or quarterly meeting with their CFO to talk about what they're going to spend. And defending the budget seems like sometimes a pretty hard thing to do. So I'm wondering if you guys have any coaching that you give your clients and prospects, how you think we should be justifying advertising and the impact on revenue.
Well, I think there are bad news and good news. I think the bad news is the fact that, frankly, the whole idea of attribution is based on as humans, we are looking for shortcuts, right? Like the easiest possible solution. And if you could answer the question, what works, like and point to the channel, okay, this channel works well based on the attribution we have, that's great, right? The bad news is that actually there's no such thing, right? Because in B2B sales and B2B marketing, it's always multi-touch, right? So if you can, for example, we use events extensively, but if you just calculate the number of leads we're getting from events directly and conversion of these leads into customers, probably they're not paying off. But however, if you look at the bigger journey and all the touches we make throughout event activities, even with prospects we had in our pipeline at that moment that helped us to make the next step or nudge them towards closing, also awareness element, then events become very different tool, right? So this is a long journey. You typically talk to someone before you win a deal, for at least 6-9 months. And then it's very hard to point to one thing that works. So that's the challenging part of attribution. And the good news is actually we started doing influence in modeling since 2018. And we've seen this working across, I would say, majority of our clients quite well. So basically we think of each channel as influence to win a deal or influence to book a meeting. And you can actually measure this and it does not cancel each other. So I mean, each channel has its own influence and it requires some heavy lift in terms of doing all the math and calculating this. But yes, you can actually meaningfully measure how much each channel contributes to the success of your sales pipeline or deals won. And I think that's the way to go. And there's actually multiple attempts to build a tool to do it. And I know that a lot of customers trying to do it themselves. So yeah, it's a heavy lift in terms of there's no shortcut, unfortunately. But if you do it right, you can get very meaningful insights looking at each channel and the influence of the channel to your sales pipeline.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. It's sort of is there any impetus toward the objective rather than the conversion event, right? So did the event and an email and a sales call and a trade show and a private dinner, did all of those things equal impetus toward a relationship getting deeper and ultimately getting into pipeline? And in fact, look at how we met, right? We met at an event. We met at a dinner event for CROs and CEOs. And here we are doing a podcast together. And that might create additional audience for you or for us. And someone might come into our pipelines as a result. And how do you measure the return on a dinner in New York a couple of months ago? Pretty hard.
Yeah. It's a very good example.
I think that's a great place to land our episode too. This was a fabulous conversation. I really appreciate it, Dmitri. And if people want to reach you or learn more about Influ2, how can they do that?
Our website is influ2.com, or I try to respond to every LinkedIn request I receive. So happy to chat with anyone who is interested. So I think that's two good options to do that.
That's excellent. And that's INFLU2, right?
Yeah, .com.
Yeah. Excellent. And my demand generation agency for SaaS firms is Austin Lawrence. We're at austinlawrence.com. That's Lawrence with a W. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, it's LinkedIn/in/Ken Lempit. And if you haven't subscribed to the SaaS Backwards podcast yet, please do so wherever podcasts are distributed. Dmitri Lisitski, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the SaaS Backwards podcast, brought to you by Austin Lawrence Group. We're a growth marketing agency that helps SaaS firms reduce churn, accelerate sales, and generate demand. Learn more about us at www.austinlawrence.com. You can email Ken Lempit at kl@austinlawrence.com about any SaaS marketing or customer retention subject. We hope you'll subscribe, and thanks again for listening.